Today, we're going to be talking about body image. If you feel like you are struggling with an eating disorder or you feel triggered by this kind of content, I would just encourage you to listen to other episodes we have. We have so many others. We're going to be talking about our own experience today with
we are not
body image.
Registered of any kind for this.
This is just our experience, and so we're going to share. Dani, I'm going to start with you. I'll give everyone a minute to hop off if they don't want to join us for this episode. But Dani, what has been the most challenging part of your journey with loving your body?
I think the most challenging part about loving my body has been watching it change over time and being attached to how it looked at a certain point. I have lost tons of weight at certain times of my life. More specifically, like when I was first coming out and I felt really good. And I was super restrictive with what I was eating. I wanted to feel good about just the new relationships that I was having. And then once I got into a relationship, I gained like 60 pounds. And then once we broke it off, I lost it all again. And so I've been through all of these highs and lows of it and have had to accept my body throughout different times of my life. So I think the hardest part was just feeling like I was really confident at one time and then linking that to the weight loss and linking it to what it looked like at a certain time. And then now being like 20 pounds heavier than I was when I was like 18 or 19, just like learning how to accept myself at all different stages. That's what I'm still working on, is how to evolve with time and accepting myself throughout time.
What did society tell you about loving your body?
Society tells many white women.
But what did it tell you?
I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Tells many white women that you have to be as thin as possible and as small as possible. And that thought was in my head because that's how my family puts messages on me. And so society, my parents, like those are the thoughts that, like, that's where they came from. And so that's the thought that I had, is how do I get as small as possible? And so I restricted my calories a lot. I was skipping out on a lot of meals. I was doing things that were not sustainable and were not healthy for me. And I internalized those thoughts, and they still come up today. But I am now having a way better relationship with food than I ever have. I'm not as restrictive. I am still working on feeling good about myself, but I'm not doing it in unsustainable ways. And I'm still working with the thoughts to recreate a different thought pattern every time that thought comes in.
Mm-hmm. What was the moment where things started to change for you in your journey with loving your body?
Definitely when I met you and I moved over here, that changed a lot, because I don't know what it was. Like, you I don't know.
Just be open.
No, I'm thinking about it, because
yeah.
you did what you wanted with food, and I like love that about you. And I didn't know that you also struggled, and so you kept that to yourself. But it still showed me that I didn't have to extremely restrict myself. So even if you were struggling, I didn't know, and I took on those patterns of not restricting, not to a point of going to a complete other side that I didn't want to go to, but I just learned that there are no necessarily like bad foods. You can eat them all within, moderation. And I learned that from you.
Which is so interesting to kind of shift it back to like that time when we met, is like I was struggling a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know. You didn't show that to me. You were super active. You were playing sports constantly. You were eating what you wanted. I was on the other side where I was super restrictive. I was afraid of certain foods.
We're also afraid to work out.
Yeah, I had played tennis all of my life, but I never liked going to the gym. And I didn't know how to how to like doing it, and I'm still working through that. Like I really, there are those thoughts that you have that you sometimes are just like always working on, and I'm now working on like not loving, but being okay with the fact that like I get to move my body and I get to lift weights and I'm able to construct my body in a way that feels really good to me instead of being so upset about it or angry. Like I was heavily influenced by my parents, and just to give this even more context, my mom was a dietitian and a nutritionist. So
also
she,
like super ripped.
yeah, she was very I wouldn't even say like restrictive, because it was just more of a lifestyle. Like she loved eating healthy. She loves still to this day working out and taking care of herself. She walks everywhere. But I definitely took a lot of it, and my dad's the complete opposite. He's now taking better care of himself, but he just would not follow that at all. So I felt like I got a lot of mixed messages growing up. But they also learned from their parents how to be as small as possible. Whether or not they did it is, to their individual, outcomes. But I don't know. I was super hard on myself throughout my whole life on what I wanted my body to look like. And now I'm figuring out what clothes feel good on me. Like that also I feel like affects everything. Like I used to want to wear the tightest and the smallest clothes, and now I'm like lifting and I feel strong and I feel a lot better. I'm just not trying to make myself the smallest I possibly can because I know that I don't like how I feel. I know what it took to get there, and I don't ever want to do it to myself or my body ever again. And I'm proud of that.
I love that. Yeah, no, it's been a journey.
So now,
great.
Now let's talk about you, Keely. So what was your experience like growing up? How did your family or society, like how did you get the thoughts that you had growing up about how your body should look?
I feel like I grew up in an Italian family, and like food is love. So like we always had Italian food and pasta and a lot of carbs, and I didn't have a very healthy family in the sense like they just ate whatever they want. Like I remember growing up eating a pint of ice cream every night. Like I just ate whatever I wanted, and food was such a big part of my life. Like I would go to my grandparents' house, I would eat so much on Sundays, like plate after plate after plate, and eating a lot of the time till discomfort. But like that was what we did. Like we'd go to the Italian festivals, we'd get sausage sandwiches, like
so good.
Oh, it was the best. But I also was an athlete, so like it wasn't until, because I don't feel like anyone ever really said anything in my family. Like we all were doing the same thing.
So you had no thoughts on what your body should look like?
No, not until I started playing sports and like got very heavily involved. Like
Okay.
I realized I wasn't as fast as I wanted to be, and my coaches would maybe like, they wouldn't say like, hey Keely, like lay off the food, but like they would say, hey, we need to work on your speed. Hey, we need to work on your like bursts and all of this stuff, And I'd be like, oh, like, And then I was struggling with my sexuality, and I felt like food was the only thing I could control. So when I was in high school, I was watching my mom like diet and go to all these different places, like Weight Watchers. And
yeah, can we just talk about the rise of Gen X moms doing those diets?
Oh my gosh.
And like, how a lot of them did push it on to kids, like their kids.
Yeah, she was like, I was just like watching her like take all these supplements and like not eating real food, and like I was like, oh, that's interesting. But then I was like starting to realize I wanted to be like a very strong athlete, and I wanted to lose weight. And obviously in high school you start comparing yourself even more, maybe even in middle school. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go with you one day. I asked her if I could go and sign up for one of the programs. So I got on a weight loss program, and I would like start monitoring my food in high school. And I remember having to count all my calories, and I was losing weight. Like by the time I was a senior, like I had lost a good amount of weight. And it was really challenging because I wasn't expecting to do that at that time. But then I realized when I got to college that like I needed to do something a little different. Like I just kind of let loose at that point. Like I had restricted myself for so long, and I gained a lot of weight in college because I was like away from all of what I grew up in. I was like, in a relationship. Like I just ate whatever I wanted, and I feel like that's when I started to like change my relationship. And you met me actually when I was a senior in college, so you met me at a point where I was like eating whatever I wanted. And then after college, I wasn't an athlete anymore, and that's when things started to change again. So I went through so many different phases, from restricting to overeating to then now being out of college and being 25 years old and going, whoa, I can work out for fun. Like I don't have to do these hard workouts, and I'm not training for anything. And now I'm learning to have a healthy relationship with food. But the number one question I'm asking myself all the time is this nourishing my body? And I'm just making sure I'm eating enough, because I work out sometimes 3 times a day. And it's like, not because I'm, pushing myself to extremes, but because I genuinely enjoy the workouts that I'm doing, and I build community in those spaces. Yeah. So
I think the most important things are finding ways to take care of your body that are sustainable for you, and finding ways that make you feel good in the long term and are not just short-term bursts of stuff. And
it's still a journey. We both every single day are like, hey, how is this helping us?
We're working on our minds, also loving our bodies, loving the journey, loving the process of moving
and
our
we call each other out. If we say something that's like, that's an old...
I am not easy with you. When you say stuff out loud,
hey, I'm like, bad? She's like, no, don't say that. Like, it's just like changing the way we think about our bodies.
Yeah. And encouraging each other. We hold each other accountable to love ourselves more, even when we're struggling with it, ourselves or whatever. So I think it's really important to find other people that are supportive and are not trying to, hurt themselves in a way. And again, none of this is talking about not taking care of your bodies. It's just not doing it in a super unhealthy mentally or physical way, you know? So I think all of it can be done. Find people that support you. Find people that inspire you to love yourself more, so we can all create a better world together.
And on that note, I think it's time for lunch.
See ya.
I'm so hungry. Thank you for joining us today. I feel like we could definitely talk more about this if this is a topic that you're interested in. Message us on Instagram at Dani and Keely Official, and then that way we know what you resonated with from this episode. Again, this is our own experience. We are not dietitians. We know nothing about this. We just know our experience and what works for us, and maybe you can resonate in some way. If you are not yet subscribed to this podcast, make sure you're subscribed. We come out with new episodes every single Friday. We're so thankful. We're so grateful for you. So make sure that you stay tuned for further episodes.